Hi. Thanks for thanks for having me. I thought I'd talk about application performance, monitoring in terms of government. Obviously, we're at the public sector event. So when we look at application performance monitoring, we can see that digital transforms government at all levels. Services are being delivered digitally these days. The application delivery chain has gone from on-premise data centers now to obviously hybrid delivery models, including AWS, or a combination of AWS plus on-premise data centers. So we're looking at how do we optimize application performance to ensure successful digital delivery of these applications to the end users, and how making the end user key focus in this digital transformation journey is really not just about looking at it from an infrastructure perspective, which is what traditional APM has been. It's looking at it from the end user perspective. So looking at how the end user consumes those services. Are we looking at the right services? So can we right size or plan the investment in digital transformation to make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely? It's not just a traditional moving from an application inside the data center to a cloud environment. It's making sure that when we break up that application into a new hybrid environment or a microservice environment or a container-based environment, you're not taking architectural issues that are inherent in the original monolithic applications and just doing a lift and shift into the cloud, which means that you're amplifying or multiplying the architectural issues that you've had on premise. And those architectural issues could be something as simple as many database calls being made. But when you are in a dynamic cloud, highly scalable environment, having additional SQL queries might cause a cost to you, because you might say, as a policy, let's spin up more containers. So spinning up more containers to cope with more database load is fantastic because the end user doesn't see that. But as a digital delivery service, you'll feel the pain of spinning up more containers from a financial perspective, for example. So we want to make sure that Dynatrace assists in transforming government services to be simple, clear, and fast. With the advent of the Digital Transformation Agency as well, looking at that focus, we believe from Dynatrace, we can give you that visibility from an end user right through to the application, right through into the data center as well. So looking at it from AWS, we're an AWS partner, Dynatrace. We have competencies in both migration and DevOps. So we're looking at assisting government departments in making that migration journey as quickly as possible with the right metrics that you can then ensure that you've delivered performant applications into the cloud that are consumed appropriately by the end users themselves. Looking at cloud migration, there are three parts for it. Migration itself is not the end goal of digital transformation. It's about ensuring that the service that you are migrating is the right service and is consumed correctly by the end users. So Dynatrace assists you in planning better. The Dynatrace platform that I will show you in a second can discover, map, and baseline performance. Migration is fantastic, moving it from a traditional easy implementation to lift and shift. If you're going to just move your workloads from on-premise into the cloud, that's fantastic. The first thing you want to do is be able to baseline and benchmark performance so you can compare it when you move it into the cloud. You want to be able to say, if it's 10 seconds inside my data center, I want at least 10 seconds or better when I move to a cloud environment. You want to make sure that that move or that shift to digital delivery happens fast. So there are no surprises in that journey. So you want to be able to easily spot what's wrong, making sure that that transformation journey goes quickly. You want to be able to make sure that it's on budget. How do we talk about on budget? It's about resource consumption when you move into the cloud. So making sure that you're consuming the appropriate resources for that transformation journey itself. So Dynatrace assists you in getting the right metrics to you to make sure that you are on time and on budget. The idea is operate simply. The last thing you want to do is have your APM solution be an overhead to delivering a service. You want to be able to deploy your APM solution as quickly as possible so it doesn't become an impediment to that migration journey. You want to make sure that APM is not an afterthought. It's part of the digital delivery planning process, part of the delivery process, part of the baseline and benchmarking, and then measuring it as you go forward. Very quickly, as the slide always gets interesting for it, who is Dynatrace? A lot of people here. How many people have heard of Dynatrace? Oh, it's 5 out of 6. You don't count Bruce, you work for us. It's fantastic. A lot of people don't know who we are. We have been around for quite a while. We say we're the only third-generation AI-based software intelligence platform. So what we're looking at is not the traditional deploy an agent, tell it what to monitor, configure the events around it. It's looking at using AI-based or machine learning-based algorithms to make sure that the events that occur are delivered to you as a succinct problem ticket, as opposed to multiple alerts or alert storms that you may be traditionally using in terms of delivering application performance. We run in the AWS cloud ourselves for the Dynatrace platform that I'll show you. We currently monitor over 100,000 hosts. We have government agencies globally that use us. Well, like I said, we are a partner. It's available on the marketplace. If you were to search for Dynatrace on the marketplace, you would find us. We also have a digital assistant, Davis, which I'll run through, running on Amazon technology and using the Amazon Alexa. So traditionally, when you think about application performance monitoring, if we look to the left of this, you've got traditional tools. Notice the vendors to the left. We are part of that left column. Going from 98 through to the early 2000s, you had your CA Wileys, your New Relics, your App Dynamics, and the early version of Dynatrace as well. And these were where you would deploy an agent. It would ask you for configuration parameters. You would tell it to monitor a certain JVM or a certain .NET CLR. You'd have to put in configuration. You'd have to tell it what to monitor, how to monitor it, and then set alerting profile and alerting rules around it. As we go forward to present day, we've got a lot of technology shifts that have happened. When we look at around early 2000, 2009, 2010, when we started looking at cloud, really, we're talking about enterprise cloud, the journey towards microservices, containerization, where we're talking about Docker platforms, Kubernetes platforms, Docker containers, serverless computing, we're running NoOps, the advent of IoT, smart devices. How do you deliver agent-based performance on a smart device, in traditional application performance monitoring? So Dynatrace noticed that there was a chasm between traditional monitoring and where the future of technology was headed in terms of application delivery. We made a conscious decision to actually reinvent what we knew of traditional APM. So purpose-built from the ground up, we delivered a new way of application performance monitoring. A way in which we looked at delivering application performance monitoring by simply delivering the agent onto the platform itself, zero configuration, and let the application performance tool discover what it is available to monitor itself. So without actually telling it what to monitor, it will deliver to you monitoring candidates. And a lot of that is contained within the demo. So please, I'll run through a short demo. If you've got any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. The booth's just to my right, to your left. Please feel free to come up and meet with us. So let's run through it. So as I said, we've got the Amazon Alexa. We also got it as part of the Amazon app. Alexa, launch Davis.
Showing items launching app.
When it works. Alexa, launch Davis. No, it doesn't like me. Alexa, launch Davis.
What's up?
Give me my morning report. And then
Good afternoon. After analyzing 5 applications, here are some interesting findings from the last 24 hours. First, JB Hi-Fi homepage experienced an AppDex customer experience rating of 0, which was lower than normal by 100%. Second, Government Travel Services had an AppDex customer experience rating of 0.86, which was an increase from what was expected by infinity%. Finally, Digital Transformation Agency had an AppDex customer experience rating of 1, which was better than expected by infinity%.
So the idea there is moving away, again, not just from traditional monitoring, but moving away from the console, as a performance monitoring interface. It's not just going from a thick client to a web-based UI. It's moving towards connected devices. So using your Alexa device or using an app to say, what is actually happening inside my environment? Tell me what's happening. Tell me what the problems are. You've also got interfaces like Slack interfaces where you can talk to the application. More importantly, Alexa, launch Davis.
What can I do for you?
Show Smartscape.
Sorry,
show Smartscape.
Here is your Smartscape. Dynatrace is actively monitoring 166 called dependencies across 35 entities in your environment. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No. So the idea is, rather than have you tell it what to monitor, you want your solution to actually tell you what's available inside your environment. And if this is a cloud environment, you want to be able to say, what are my connected services looking like? So within AWS, I might have a single server, but that server itself might deploy many different processes. Processes that deliver an application to the end user. If I was to look at a single host, not very interesting. If I deploy the agent on that host, let me just click. It gets more interesting. When we drill into that single host, we can actually see that that host has on it many different processes. Some of these processes are going to be things like Apache processes, Tomcat processes, Nginx processes. Again, without configuration, Dynatrace automatically discovers these processes for you, simply by deploying the agent. Those processes deliver services, services being things like transactions, URLs, database calls, WebSocket calls. The ability to tag and trace across an environment becomes key. You want to know what's performing, how it's performing, when is it being consumed, and if it's slow, tell me that it's slow. In this case, in this very simplistic environment, there are no issues currently being shown. But again, all I've done here is just deploy the agent onto the server, and it's automatically told me what's there. So if you're looking for things like your migration journey, you want to know what to migrate. As Dynatrace being used as that discovery process, you can easily populate things like your CMDB to make sure that when you do that migration process, you've got an up-to-date catalog of both infrastructure and processes that are required to migrate into your cloud environment. The ability then to not just go from the process to the service, but right through to the application itself that's being consumed. If it's a web server process, Dynatrace can automatically inject JavaScript into the HTML content that's being delivered by that process, which means that you get visibility not just from the process level, but also from the users consuming that service. And this could be a mobile service, or it could be a web server. So looking at the government service travel application, we can see that most of my users are coming across on Chrome devices. We can see who they are, how they're consuming the services, are there any issues? Things like today's applications using XHR or single page applications. So rather than just monitoring the discrete URLs, Dynatrace allows you to package those discrete URLs into the user operation that is being selected. So it might be someone scrolling through a web page, and each iteration of that scroll calls off another background operation. So we tie those background operations to the scroll event at the front end. So being able to see who the users are, how they're coming in, what their journey is like from a front-end development perspective, what are the actions being called, which actions do we need to optimize, where's my time being spent, you can actually go through and say, are we looking at the right ways in which we can optimize? Is it going to be a back-end service that we need to optimize? Is it going to be a front-end service that we're looking at? More importantly, what is my most frequently used operation? How am I going to optimize it? So you can actually see, in this case, we have a particular URL called, click on back. It's fun enough. So looking at click on back, what does that look like? As a developer, by simply downloading the agent, you've got access to both the front-end information and the back-end information as well. So for front-end optimization, you can see how long it took, were there any JavaScript errors, what resources were called when someone clicks on a button. And again, this is tying in user analytics into application performance monitoring. So looking at it from a front-end perspective, we can say that when someone clicks on the back button, these are the discrete operations that are being called from that action. Traditional monitoring will look at monitoring the URLs themselves, or the web service calls. What we do is elevate that into a user action, because when someone calls the help desk, they're not going to say, you know what, when I hit the browser and I saw URL ABC/back, it was slow. They're going to say, when I hit the back button, it was slow. So you can actually then look at the operations from a user perspective and see where optimization needs to occur. By deploying Dynatrace you have the ability to actually look at it from the front end, as I said, but looking at all users. So not just a subset of users. You can actually go through and say, where are my users coming from? Which location are they coming from? More importantly, when my users are on the system, what are they doing? So again, being able to say, this is a user, it's come through on a desktop device using Windows 10 from the US. This is the journey that they took. And remember, from digital transformation from users consuming services, it is about the journey through the site, whether they're using a mobile device or they're using a desktop browser. It is about seeing what their operation or their interaction with the service is like. Are they satisfied, frustrated, or just tolerating the site? You know, they have no alternative. But you still want to deliver a better performance because it is about both brand awareness and about the perception of your front door to the agency itself. So we can look at an application, for example, where say this one here. It's being able to drill down from a discrete operation right down to the back-end operations. We can actually see this is an application that has a transaction called calculate recommendations. It took this length of time, and being actually able to call on that resolution, on that particular pure path, or on that particular transaction to hand off to your developers. So again, all I've done here is deploy a simple agent on one machine to get me these analytics. You know, a byproduct of those analytics is being able to visualize what that application looks like when you do a lift and shift into AWS. So bring in additional metrics that the agent cannot provide. So bring in things like AWS CloudWatch metrics. You know, as you start that digital transformation journey, as I said, you might start with a traditional lift and shift. You might then go to what we call breaking the monolith, where you break the application that you have on-premise into consumable services. You know, deploying microservices, or even deploying it as function as a service as you go forward. You know, being able to see what that looks like. In fact, if I jump across to another application, actually that has some functions, you know, as you go towards function as a service, you want to be able to say, this is my functions that I've deployed, these are the number of times it gets invoked, this is the performance of those functions. But again, it brings it in context to the application that's being delivered to the end user. You know, so you want to be able to bring all that data to the forefront. Again, as we walk forward into, as I said, microservices, you know, everyone talks about microservices. Microservices are fantastic because it looks like containerization of discrete business services to the end user. How do you manage that? You can do it several ways. You can use something like Kubernetes to host your Docker containers. Traditionally, you would have to go and deploy an agent into every container. Now that creates a maintenance overhead. You've got to make sure that the right agent version is inside the right container. How do you do that? You can use Ansible to automate that. Dynatrace takes a different approach. We would just simply look at the Kubernetes cluster, install the agent on the Kubernetes cluster, which means that every container that is instantiated inherits monitoring. So therefore, you only need to have the agent itself on the cluster. The automation that we have built into the platform means that as new versions of the agents are delivered to the platform, it would automatically push the updates to the agents themselves. So you can have that manual process removed. Again, you can control these processes to say we only want them delivered to the agent once we've approved them, once we've tested them in dev and UAT. But again, that's built into the platform itself. Once you're happy with it, it'll push the update to the agent, restart the process, excuse me, and it will take in the new version of the agent. You know, by looking at your Docker containers as well, your hosts, you can actually see the health of both the Kubernetes cluster as well as the underlying Docker containers as well. So again, looking at the health of the Kubernetes cluster, these are my containers, these are the services that they deliver. You know, I can pick a particular service and get further information about the JVM that is contained within the Java process itself. You know? So again, like I said, Dynatrace is built on the platform as being a simple solution to implement, getting you fast time to value. The last thing you want to do is have APM as an overhead to delivering a better service to your end users. So simply delivering the agent onto the platform, restarting the process, means that you get access to all this rich data set of information. As I said, you know, we deliver on a promise of what we call software intelligence. It's not just about delivering an APM solution to look at performance and availability. It's about taking insights from that Dynatrace platform. As I showed you, you've got insights from an infrastructure perspective where you've got CPU, disk, memory, network, basic infrastructure metrics. On top of that infrastructure, you have processes. So again, you have web server information, CPU, memory, threads, excuse me, throughput, errors. On top of the website or web server itself, you have the websites being hosted and delivered to the end users. We package all that up into that single agent install. So whereas traditionally you would need to download and deploy a web server agent plus a Java agent plus a infrastructure agent, for us it's a single binary that you would deploy onto the host. That gives you that platform ready for monitoring, and it also provides a wealth of data that we put a platform across for software intelligence we can then export and add into your BI tools, for example. So again, you can pull in user metrics, user journey metrics, how are they consuming the services, what are the errors, how do those errors relate to the platform itself. The idea is we can take all that data together for you and bring it into context of a single problem ticket. When Dynatrace talks about an event, we're talking not just about a discrete event, which is a CPU that runs hot, or memory that is going beyond 80% or 90% of CPU or memory utilization. It's about bringing all those events together in a single problem ticket, which means you get contextual information about not just the event itself, but how it impacts the end user and how it impacts delivery of the application from an end user perspective. By bringing all that data into our platform itself, it also does root cause analysis. The big data lake with machine learning or AI over the top of it means we can look at the issues affecting the end users and tell you what the root cause was. Whether that root cause is going to be a JVM that's running high CPU, or a JVM that is stalled because of garbage collection, or more importantly, things like a network issue affecting the server that is being hosted. The idea is we will give you that impact analysis, both from a front-end perspective to say who's impacted, when they're impacted, how they're impacted, but more importantly, how does that problem look when it is being investigated. So again, a single problem ticket that you can deliver to your end users. A single problem ticket that you can deliver to your DevOps team, for example. So when you do, when they get the ticket, they can actually see how the problem evolved over time. So what went red first? Ordinarily, where you see the red, that would be an event that would be raised normally through a ticketing system. So we'd see Tomcat service A went red, then B went red, then C went red. Those 3 events being delivered into things like ServiceNow or Jira. And traditionally, your ops team, your DevOps team would then go through and sort through those events to try and make sense of what it looks like. What we do is package all those discrete events into a single problem ticket so that you can know where to look. More importantly, if we look at it from a application delivery, select, there we go. When we select it, we can actually tell you what to focus your time on. So rather than searching for a needle in the haystack, we're telling you where the needle is, not just which haystack to look in. But again, so when you're looking at your mean time to repair, that comes way down the more information you get. And the more targeted information you get means you can apply things like auto remediation across. So if you have the same issue occurring time after time, you know what the resolution process is, you can push that through into something like Ansible to say, when we see this event, kill the container and spin up a new one. Or kill the server, and restart a new instance of it. So Dynatrace is about delivering that intelligence over your APM solution so that you have the ability to deliver better solutions to your end users. As I said, please, I'm happy to take any questions, or we can take any questions at the booth, or go through a more targeted demonstration that meets your needs. As I said, this session was just intended to give an overview of how we deliver against application performance in the AWS environment, utilizing things like the Alexa skill set. You've got Davis. You can deliver Davis through Slack as well, so you can actually interact with it. The idea is taking it from just a traditional operations center to no ops. Dynatrace, as I said, we're monitoring about 100,000 hosts. We do that with 4 operators in our operations center, looking after a global delivery. Please. We have an event in Canberra on the 23rd of October. It's our user group. Please feel free to come along. There's an invite at the table if you want to scan it, Or if you want to take your phone, you can actually scan the QR code. It'll take you directly there as well. We're more than happy to see as many of you there as possible to talk about how Dynatrace can assist you in delivering better transformation journeys to your end users. My name is Grant Engelbrecht. I'll be at the booth. Thank you.